Can you see the hole in my shirt?
I don't think so.
Good.
Where is it?
Get more patrons, I'll be able to buy shirts without holes in them. Hello YouTube community, our biggest community. We've almost 500,000 subscribers, and I recently realized that we've never really done any communication with you folks. We have our Patreon where we do behind the scenes videos and do loads of, sort of in-depth looks at the work that we do, but we've never really talked to you directly. So I decided to do a Q&A. We put a post up on the community tab and we got over 100 responses from a bunch of you, and I picked out sort of the most interesting, the highest voted questions, and I'm gonna answer as many of them as I can today. Let's crack into these questions and talk about the work we do. That Was Weird asks, when did you come up with the beautiful idea to make documentaries about video game companies? I used to work for GameSpot.com, which is one of the big sort of mainstream video game websites, and when you're working on a site like that, you do quite a lot of different types of work. You're like editing and hosting and doing podcasts and all that. But the projects that I was most interested in was when we got to go to studios and talk to developers, except they never did good traffic. They always completely died on their arses. Nobody watched any of these previews. And it's because previews were kind of boring. You kind of talk to developers about the game that's coming out and they're full of sort of platitudes and positivity about their game, but you don't actually get to talk to them about the reality of making games. So while I was at GameSpot, we kind of tried our hand at some of those. We did some behind the scenes videos on games like Titanfall and Overwatch, and I really enjoyed it, and so did the audience. And so I kind of wanted to do more of that stuff there, but it wasn't really possible to do it in the way that I wanted. The idea for Noclip kind of stemmed from that, to kind of, double down on that stuff and only work on that type of work. And I'm really grateful I get to do it all the time, so thank you so much. Rock Killer 124 asks, I'll be waiting for Doom Eternal documentary, gonna be worth it? I guess that's not so much of a question as it is a statement. I'm really excited to also maybe do that. I don't know if we'll be doing it, but I hope we get to do it. One of the cool things about being around now for 3.5 years is that hopefully we'll get to return to some of the studios where we did documentaries before. Our doc on Doom 2016 was only the second one we ever did, and obviously Hugo Martin is a total badass, so we gotta go back and talk to him at any moment we can. Peter Murphy asks, Cyberpunk doc? Nothing planned right now. We haven't talked to them about anything. Again, I think, once that game is out, that's kind of generally when we approach studios, is once they're not, deep in development on something, and that game's obviously been pushed back, so they're probably, working crazy on that at the moment. Yeah, I'd absolutely love to go back and do that. So, I don't know. Fingers crossed. Watch this space. Tom Ahern asks, which documentary or series do you want to do an update on since it was released? And why do you want to do that update? Oh man, I mean, everyone, I'd probably change something in it, but the project I would definitely go back and take another swing at would be Fallout 76. That documentary has a very different feel to it if you watch it. If you watched it before that game came out, like when we launched it around E3, and then after that game came out, the comments just went like from one direction to another. We were sort of praised for getting more information about that game than Bethesda even shared at E3. We sort of like got into the weeds on gameplay in that. But if you watch it after the game came out, it looks like it was created by psychopaths because it's so incongruous to the reality of how that game ended up coming out. And the problem, I think, with that, people said like, oh, you shouldn't cover, games pre-release, or, I know there's a certain amount of baggage when it comes to Bethesda, for instance. But for me, as somebody who was like, on the creative side of making that thing, I think the responsibility lies in the way that I approach that project. I think the voice of that project could have been really different. I think we should have asked them less questions about what they wanted it to be. It was kind of like a glorified preview, basically, not a documentary about development. So the voice that they had ended up being way more like optimistic. Like they were talking about the destination, not really where they were. So we actually learned a lot from Fallout 76, that documentary. Our series on Hades is in many ways kind of more sensitive than even doing a preview because we're embedding in a game that's in early access. But there's loads of things that we changed about how we approach the production of Hades because of 76. So for instance, we don't get them to talk about what the game will be in the future at all, really. They only really talk about their job in that moment in time. Each episode has a very distinct place in time. Like when you watch it, you know, oh, that's when it came out. Another big thing we do is kind of what I'm doing right now, which is that instead of doing the regular sort of off to one side side talking to me thing, we get the developers to look straight down the barrel, to look at the lens and talk to you directly and not talk to us. And I think that also breaks down a sort of an element of salesmanship that sort of comes across when you talk to people about, you know, games that are coming out in the future. So yeah, if I could take another swing at the 76 one, I'm glad we did it. It was amazing to be there so early in the development process for that game. But while we sort of effectively made a good video for when the game was announced, I think it's nowhere near as evergreen as the stuff that we usually do. But yeah, if you don't make mistakes, you don't learn stuff. So that's all just part of the Noclip story. General Disarray asks, beyond your Patreon and similar revenue streams, how on earth do you fund Noclip in a sustainable way? I ask myself this question every day. We're really lucky to have a healthy Patreon. We also do, you know, merchandise on the side, but like, yeah, we don't do like sales videos, or we don't even monetize them on YouTube. For me, I think the way that we fund this stuff is we just have really low overhead. Like basically like 95% of the documentary work has been done by myself and Jeremy. We're a two-person team. We fund every element of the production. We don't take any handouts from anyone we cover. We pay for the flights, we pay for accommodation. Sometimes we get free lunch while we're at the studios, but that's about as far as it goes. And yeah, this stuff is like expensive. Like flying around the world's expensive. Hiring people to do this type of work, it's a skilled job. Editing and filming is like not something anyone can do, so that comes with its cost. Now we have this studio, which is fantastic and is helping us make our best work ever, and also helping us film stuff. Obviously that comes at a cost. We now have rent to pay, but at the end of the day, we kind of keep it small. You know, we don't waste money on productions. We get into studios and we get out. We kind of spend more on the post-production, on editing, where the dollar stretches a bit more, kind of. But yeah, this stuff is, you know, expensive, but it's also, you know, people really like it, so we really love what we're doing. We couldn't do any of this without our patrons. Like literally, if Patreon shut down, we'd have to shut down too. Or if we lost half our patrons tomorrow, it would massively affect the type of work that we do. In the same way that if we, you know, double the amount of patrons we had, we'd be able to probably hire 2 more people to make even more of this stuff. So really, it all comes down to just being clever when it comes to expenditure, not overspending, not being wasteful, and yeah, making sure that our patrons are happy so they keep the lights on. Daniel Maroth asks, other YouTube channels to follow? Yeah, there's loads of people doing really good work, and I'm probably going to forget a lot of them, but you should definitely follow Archipel. They make incredible game doc and sort of creative doc stuff out of Japan. Hold Back to Block, which is a YouTube channel created by Esteban Martinez, who's filmed stuff with us. If you like fighting games, you should absolutely check that out. GameSpot's Audio Logs is really good, a series that they have on their channel, interviewing developers about their work. From a video production standpoint, Corridor Crew, Corridor Digital's like behind the scenes channel is just wonderful. I love it. I get a lot of inspiration from that. Chris Bratt of People Make Games, making wonderful videos about the people behind games. Chris also hosted our Creative Assembly documentary, which will be coming out in April. And yeah, stuff like you know, Game Maker's Toolkit, Nakey Jakey. I'll watch any Nakey Jakey video. If it's a music video, if it's a video about Red Dead Redemption or online dating, I'm there. Crashpad asks, how do you go about getting interviews and getting development information? Sometimes it's a long process, sometimes it's short. Sometimes we have to reach out to studios. A lot of the time they now come to us. But it's kind of just a lot of like transparency and authenticity and emails. We don't bullshit people. Like, people know right from the start that we have creative control over the project, that they don't get to make changes to anything. We have certain allowances, like we allow them to clear B-roll that we film around the studio in case there's people or stuff that we weren't supposed to film. But yeah, when it comes to getting projects, we only really work with people who sort of we have that understanding with. We work with PR teams, not marketing teams. The other element of this is getting information that perhaps they're not so interested in talking about. So like we're pretty upfront about the angle that we have, about the stuff that we want to talk about. If there's an element of a story that's quite sensitive, but is totally necessary for the sort of archival purposes of our story or the journalistic side of it, we're really upfront about that. Like we let them know that we're going to wade into these waters. And then sometimes that also includes is getting assets for that stuff that perhaps again they're maybe not so interested in sharing, or maybe no one's asked before. So it's different for every project. It was different for Final Fantasy 14. It was different for, you know, Doom. It's different for a project like Astroneer, which is not so much opening up about a game, but opening up about, you know, a personal story, or Telltale, for instance. So it's just a lot of like talking to people, managing relationships, and just asking, a lot of asking. And then I guess a lot of it has to do with just having a trustworthy reputation. We're not here to make, you know, marketing videos for companies, but we're also not here to screw them. And it's a really difficult line to sort of wiggle through, because we want to have trust with our audience that we're doing this for all the right reasons, that we're not getting paid by people, that we're here to tell the true story, and then also, you know, that we're not sort of softballing people. And we're really not. Like, we're a small outfit, and we try as best as possible to get people to talk authentically, and to get information and assets that no one ever has before. But also at the same time, we're not making the, you know, tabloidy, sexy, clickbaity version of the videos either. And I think that trust in us, the notion that we're doing this for like archival reasons and for, you know, transparency reasons, I think that helps us open doors. We have a really amazing project coming up in the next few months where we got access to some amazing, never before seen stuff, and you know, that project was probably in the works for about a year, so we work really hard on it, and it means a lot that people know that we're doing this for all the right reasons, and yeah, we just want to show stuff that gamers have never seen before, so that's kind of why we're doing all this. Kleenex Ghost, that's a great name, asks, whatever happened to those 15 interviews you announced a year ago? Patreon only? No, we never put any like interviews or projects behind the paywall. Patrons get access to like behind the scenes videos, and early access to the docs, and sometimes we have like bonus scenes, which are cool, but like none of the core interviews or projects are ever behind a paywall. Like, there's only 2 of us working on this stuff, and we kind of filmed a bit too much at GDC last year, so we're still making our way through it. I think we've put out maybe 8 of those videos, so we still have maybe 6 or 7 to get through. Some of them won't ever come out because we interviewed people about stuff that's already happened. But yeah, we're getting through it. There's some really good ones in there. Lisette Teacher Montgomery, there's a great interview with Tarn Adams, a wonderful one on the System Shock remake. We're getting to them. If we could hire more people, we'd have them out by now, but until then, you're just gonna have to be a little bit patient, sorry. Brandon Lewis asks, video on the history of VR to coincide with Half-Life Alyx? I mean, I'd love to make a documentary about Half-Life Alyx to coincide with the launch of Half-Life Alyx, or maybe to come up after it. That'll be fun. We tend not to tell docs about the sort of really broad stories like VR, because it's kind of hard to get to like a human element in those stories. It's why like when you go to Netflix and you type in video game documentary, everyone's making like gaming documentaries about all of gaming. It's way too broad. It's like on Netflix, when you look up food documentaries, there's documentaries about every type of cuisine and chef and place in the world. You never go to Netflix and type in food documentary and get a documentary on all of food, but it's, for whatever reason, it's the way game docs are always done. So while I hear what you're saying, something on VR might be compelling, it would take a long time to like really cover that story. You have to fly lots of places, and the story's kind of still happening. So it's kind of why we focus on individual games or individual studios, because it's cost effective. We can kind of fly somewhere for, you know, between 3 and 6 days, film a bunch of stuff, and we kind of have the whole story. Yeah, I don't know. I think we should probably cover the development of a VR game. I think that would be interesting. And yeah, I mean, we did a 2-hour documentary on Half-Life's legacy without actually talking to anyone at Valve. So, I mean, if they're interested, please. Aaron Heaton asks, favorite county to visit in Ireland? Waterford. It's in the southeast. It's where I was born and raised. It's a 1,000-year-old city. I used to skateboard next to Viking walls. Visit there. Go to all the places I used to drink underage. Garrett Wainstock asks, which trip was the most exhausting? It can't be easy to travel with all that equipment and a job to do. Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, I've had some like pretty crappy jobs, working at, you know, call centers and cleaning up in a cinema and retail and all that sort of stuff. We're really lucky the job that we do here. It's like, it's very cool to be able to go to studios and interview them and then, you know, make fun videos out of them. So I'm not complaining, but yeah, sometimes it can get a little bit tough. In February, we flew a lot. We went to Obsidian in Los Angeles, which wasn't so hard, but then we went to Lyon to see Arcane. We went to Austin. So we were in the air quite a lot. I think Jeremy said, was it 40 hours you were? Yeah, Jeremy was in the air for a 40-hour work week that month. It can be hard, but we're seasoned travelers at this stage. We're used to interviewing people while stuck in jet lag hell. It's sort of part of the process at this stage. Or J Souls asks, I know this has been asked many times, but FromSoftware? Yeah, FromSoftware, man, like I would love to do something on Bloodborne. I'd love to do something on Dark Souls. I'd love to do something on the history of that studio and the creatives they have there. We've been in contact with them. You know, they've been really kind. They said that they like Noclip and they sort of appreciate what we do, but it's just not for them. I guess they don't do a lot of press stuff generally. Miyazaki doesn't do a lot of press stuff generally. And I think they just kind of like the mystery, and I respect it. Like I understand that idea. Like a lot of the love I have for those games is trying to like pick them apart and figure out what's going on, figure out the design intent, and I think that's why people have really vibed with those games, because they've done something new and interesting. Yeah, we've asked. We don't hound them over it, but we ask every once in a while, and the answer has so far always been no. But Noclip is like not something. It's not a flash in the pan thing. Like I want to be doing this in 5 years and 10 years, and at a certain time, everyone wants their story told. So I'm hopeful that someday we might get to do it, but not right now, unfortunately. I even got a tattoo to try and convince them to let us do it, so maybe I just need to get a couple more. Henrik Munhaus asks a question, what's your favorite doc to produce and why? My favorite documentary, actually, I'm gonna ask Jeremy, come around. He's never in front of camera.
Probably the Rediscovering Mystery one.
Oh yeah,
it hit a soft spot for me in the era when video games were mysterious and the internet wasn't like a source of answers. It was just a source of more conspiracy theories about where the Triforce was hidden. So probably that one.
Yeah. This is awkward. Go back there.
Yeah.
I think for me it was probably the Half-Life documentary. I really wanted to do something for the 20th anniversary, and when we didn't hear back from Valve, you know, the immediate response would have been to just not do anything. But actually in having that big like creative restriction, it kind of forced us to make something maybe more interesting than just talking to the developers about the game in some ways. So yeah, I think that was probably the most self-indulgent documentary we worked on, and it's probably the one that I enjoyed making the most. Cool, that was our first ever Q&A with our community here on YouTube. Thank you so much for subscribing to us and supporting our work and sharing it and telling your mom and posting it on Reddit and doing all that stuff. We started this channel 3.5 years ago with 0 subscribers. It's kind of a weird channel because all we do is produce these big docs and then we kind of go quiet on here for quite a long time while we're chatting to our patrons and editing and stuff. We're a small team. It's myself and Jeremy and a handful of amazing contractors and contributors we have that help with social media and filming and editing sometimes, captions and stuff like that. But we're a small, humble team and we really care about the work that we do. And we're just really appreciative of all of you for, I guess, caring as well. So we'll probably do something when we hit 500,000 subs, because it's pretty momentous and not something we kind of expected to do in the first couple of years. Yeah, in the meantime, just thank you so much for supporting our work. Thank you for watching and, you know, being interested in the big games and the small games, the big docs and the small ones. Your support really means a lot. If you have any questions that didn't get covered here, please, by all means, put them in the comments below and we'll do our best to answer them. But yeah, until next time, thank you so much for supporting our channel. Oh, and we've documentaries on Creative Assembly, The Outer Worlds, and Arcane coming in the next like 2 months, and bunches more stuff. So yeah, tell your mom. Bye.
All right, we're gonna do a snap zoom. This is just for me. After I'm gonna say 3, 2, 1, snap zoom, and just say video games. All right, you ready? 3, 2, 1.
Video games.